begin with, I have to say it has been a long journey. My heart is brimming with nostalgia, deep emotion, and I'm extremely delighted that each one of you could make it to the release of this book. The book has completed 25 years and it has been updated. The original PhD thesis, which was published, was 250 pages. This book is 588 pages with new insights and from new analysis. Thank you all for coming. Chief guest and two-time Chief Minister of Goa and Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Luizino Falero. Guests of honor, Advocate Carlos Alvarez Ferreira, Executive Editor of O Heraldo, Mr. Setadro Oja, keynote speaker and well-known author and former editor of O Heraldo, Mr. Alexander Barbosa, senior journalist and ideator of the Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium, Mr. Jovito Lopez, friends, guests, and concerned citizens of Goa. Let me begin by a quote from Harold Lasky, which is also there in the book, as to why citizens should evaluate politics and why it is necessary for citizens to pass a judgment on what the people who are elected by us do by way of policy or development. And I quote, "The will of the state is subject to the scrutiny of all who come within the ambit of its decisions. Because it molds the substance of their lives, they have the right to pass judgment upon the quality of its efforts. They have indeed the duty to pass judgment. For it is in the plain lessons of the historic record that the wants of men will only secure recognition to the point that they are forcibly articulate." Now, the book which I have written comes with a disclaimer. There is a first problematic that each chief minister, from Dayanand Bandodkar to Wilfred D'Souza in 1994, faced different cabinet colleagues. They faced different circumstances, different pressures, and different problems to deal with. Hence, to judge all of them with the same yardstick is to some extent hazardous, since social sciences lack the technical tools to quantify their efforts. What is therefore attempted is broad strokes of evaluation of leadership, decision-making, legislation, and the political process. All the chief ministers, including Mr. Luizino Falero, who is sitting in our midst, were great people. Therefore, they got elected by their parties and approved by the High Command. Now, though a lot more could be done by the chief ministers and the governments that existed, some of the consequences of their actions have been good, some have been bad, and some of the consequences of the chief ministers till date have been disastrous, especially post the year 1989 after statehood. The book covers huge ground in terms of detail, as has been told by Mr. Jovito Lopez, by Advocate Carlos, and by our chief guest, Mr. Falero. So I leave you to read the book. My son and daughter are both avid readers in the age of cell phones, but they have assured me to start with they will read the book cover to cover. But I will point out a few findings in terms of trends. Now, as Alexander had mentioned, though Dayanand Bandodkar did not possess high educational qualifications, he was the savior, or he was seen as the savior of the Bahujan masses. Although you see many poor people among this category of people, although the MGP ruled for 16 long years. He was one of the most respected and visionary CM, although his educational qualifications were not high. Bandodkar was not a hardcore mergerist. The hardcore mergerists and hardcore Marathiwadis were defeated by the voters after every election in which they revolted against Bandodkar. So this has to be seen as a positive for the Goan electorate, that extremes are not tolerated by the Goan electorate in terms of language, caste, ethnic, or any other divisions which politicians may try to create. I have also paid tributes to opposition leader Jack the Sequeira. If you see in the book, each chapter has a photograph of the chief minister. The second chapter is the only chapter which carries the photograph of an opposition leader because of his contribution to Goa, because of his impressing upon the center that Goa should have an opinion poll. Of course, Indira Gandhi was the one who gave us the opinion poll. But because of his contribution, Goa is a state, and today our politicians can become chief ministers, and MLAs. The book, besides the merger Marathi controversy, has certain things like the opinion poll, the defeat of the Shashikala government, also covers the tumultuous decades of dissidence and the PDF experiment, which was the first genuine coalition government. Actually, even the first Bandodkar government was a coalition government. But the party was too small. PSP had 2 seats, plus they were independent. So you see in every government there have been independents supporting the political parties. But the first major experiment in coalition making was the PDF government. We also have a dubious record. Although we are the best performing state, Goa has a dubious record in terms of politics. We have the first disqualified chief minister, the first disqualified speaker, the first requalified speaker, that is Ravi Naik, the first dismissal of a sitting chief minister, Wilfred D'Souza, the first ministry which lasted for 76 hours, the Ravi Naik ministry. We also have the first dismissed governor, and 7 governments in 5 years. All these are records of parliamentary democracy in India and maybe perhaps the world. In terms of trend, one has seen that there has been a decline of leadership in the chief ministers with very few exceptions. Leadership of the chief ministers has changed from mass leadership like Bandodkar, who knew people by name even from Pedne to Kankon, to leaders or chief ministers being leaders of minuscule majority within the legislature party. Dissidence, as we have seen, has overshadowed the leadership of chief ministers, especially since the Rani decade. We have seen politics move from idealism in terms of at least the revenge of caste interests like the Bahujan Samaj in the merger Marathi issue. It was because the Bahujan Samaj was scared of the rule of Hindu Brahmins and Catholics post-liberation that they wanted to merge Goa with Maharashtra. So it was a revenge of caste interests, as I've called it. But today you have purely personal and selfish monetary interests. This is the reason why you see the making and unmaking of governments. I will try to skip some of these things. But you'll see there are a lot of aberrations in cabinet government, the worst of which has been defections. And I will go to the points which I have added, in retrospect after looking at the polity for another 30 years. You'll find that when we look at this book, it gives you an example or examples of how do we elect better leaders. It tells you by the leaders that we have elected in the past, we can gauge how do we elect leaders. These are the questions that are before Goa even today. How do we preserve Goan heritage, identity, culture, lifestyles? This is the things that we are fighting for. So earlier, if there was a communal divide in the electoral vote, today you find Hindus and Catholics coming to save Goa. They are not saving Hindu Goa or Bahujan Goa or Catholic Goa. People are coming together to save Goa. How to preserve the epic communal harmony and the common civil code that we have, because government after government has been diluting this common civil code. how to preserve our land and ecology and still save Goa at this late stage, because already a lot of damage has been done. How to ensure that democracy and the land ownership is not so badly altered that Goa will no longer remain Goa. This is a big thread. How to ensure peace and justice for all communities. Now, the book the cabinet government in Goa is also a conscience keeper of what we have done. It red flags the aberrations and what needs to be avoided, and which can open up possibilities for a greater future by avoiding the fallacies of the past. The book is my little contribution and my little commitment to Goa and to Goenka Pond. My prayer for Goa is that may this land, which was reclaimed from the sea by our Gaonkars, be reclaimed from the serious challenges that it faces today, and maybe the future generations who are young, bright, and convivial minds, like Elton, Danika, like the interns from Xavier's College, and all our youth, all the children of Goa who are full of life, continue the battles that people like Jack the Sequeira, Teotonio Pereira, Chandrakant Keni, the UGP, my school teacher late Matani Saldana, my B.Ed professor Sergio Carvalho, who has just passed away, and our very own Luisino Falero fought to save Goa at different points of time. Long may the Goan civilization survive. So this is where I get to talk for the second time. I propose a vote of thanks. Besides God, who is my creator and everyone's creator, the story of my life has been a story of 3 admirable mentors and hundreds of generous collaborators, many of you sitting here in the audience. My dad, who providentially admitted me to Don Bosco for a good education. Father Benedict Furtado, who providentially supported and inspired me, and all the Salesians who are sitting in the audience, who shaped my education, and former Vice Chancellor and Head of Political Science Department and my PhD guide, and a thorough gentleman, and the great scholar, Professor Adi H. Doctor, who guided my PhD and helped me in my career. I wish to thank the Chief Guest and 2-time Chief Minister of Goa and Rajya Sabha MP, Mr. Luisino Falero, his wife, Mrs. Rachel Falero, and Ravi Falero. The guests of honor, Advocate Carlos Alvarez Ferreira, Executive Editor of O Heraldo, Mr. Chetadru Oja, well-known author and former editor of O Heraldo, Mr. Alexandre Moniz Barbosa, for doing the difficult task of delivering the keynote address. Senior journalist and ideator of the Nehru Stadium, Mr. Jovito Lopez, and Master of Ceremonies for today. My parents, Francisco and Maria Fernandes, were working for Raj Bhavan right from the Portuguese period and were invited to Portugal by the last governor of Goa, Vassalo e Silva, but who politely declined. My family, Ruby, Elton, and Danika. Elton has done his degree in architecture and interior design and will now pursue his master's from the Technological University of Dublin. Danika is doing her BBA from Don Bosco College, and my loving sister Lucia and her family. My friends and extended family, Romel, Felicio, Savio Nazario de Souza, who have helped with the logistics of this function. My dear friends, Professor Prajal Sakardande and Dr. Ketan Govekar, who could not be here. Ms. Namrata Ulman, Secretary Legislature, and retired Deputy Secretary Legislature, Mr. Hercules Narona. The late Ashok Ulman, then Legislature Secretary, who has been of tremendous support and help to me. My publisher of Curate Books, Rama Harmalkar, who is sitting behind, who has arrived. Dr. Lourdes Bravi Costa, the State Librarian, retired, and library staff who helped me during my research. Sanjay Sawant, the Librarian of the Goa Legislature Library. On behalf of the Salesians of Don Bosco, I wish to thank Father George Quadras, Father Kinley de Cruz, Father Tony Alemão, and Brother James Marcus, who could be with us, who helped me tremendously during my formative years. In a very special way, I wish to thank Dr. Shanti Fonseca and Comrade Christopher Fonseca, another relentless fighter for the working class, Dr. Meenakshi Martins, Advocate Jatin, Mr. V.B. Saxena, Director of Statistics Planning and Evaluation, my beard colleagues who have come all the way, Framilda Gracious, Daigo Sebi Pinto, Joyce Cabral, Lavette Falero was supposed to come, and Sharmila Rao. My professional colleagues, Dinesh Keluskar, Editor, Dainik Herald, Sujit Nair, Deputy Editor, Herald, Vijay D'Souza, who is generous enough, along with Mr. Frederick Norona, to give a very generous review in the Navin Times, Joel D'Souza, Editor, The Goan, my friend Avit Bagle, Chief of News Bureau, Gomantak, Oscar and Iridio Narona, my old friends, Roland Martins, Mr. Pankaj Gupta, whom I was very surprised to see today after a very long time. I had done his interview when I was editor of Prime TV. Dr. Antonio Mascarenas, Mr. Trajano, Advocate Rui Ferreira. A big thank you to the student volunteers of St. Xavier's College, Ojal Gaitonde, Surbi Thakur, Tanisha Pawar, Swati Suryavanshi and Prakash Devasi, who came specially to help out with this function. They have done 1 month of internship in O Heraldo and Herald TV, and I can assure you that they were intelligent, creative, media savvy, and above all, amiable, which speaks a lot of Generation Z, in whose hands we have to bestow the future of Goa. On your behalf, I offer them a small token of gratitude. I would request the chief guest, Mr. Luisino Falero, to offer them a token. Please come up in order. Swati. The white one is for the male. Prakash, please come. Swati Suryavanshi. Come, Ojal, come. Ojal Gaitonde. They are all second year mass comm and journalism students of St. Xavier's. Tanisha Pawar. Surbi Thakur. Yeah. And Prakash Devasi. Finally, I thank all of you who have been generous enough to take time to attend this function, which shows not just your interest in a book or a function, but a larger commitment to Goa. This is an extremely delightful occasion, and I deeply feel gratified by your presence. Finally, a thought on my birthday. We think tomorrow is guaranteed. It isn't. So today, while you can breathe, say the words you are saving. Cherish the hands you can still hold. Give the love you plan to give someday. Life's cruelest truth is that someday can vanish without warning, as seen from the Ahmedabad Dreamliner tragedy. Lastly, my appeal to each one of you is to keep up the fight for Goa in whatever way you can, since the assault on the Goa's land, culture, language, and people is huge. Do whatever you can to save Goa. Thanks once again. Jai Hind, Jai Goa.